What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of our English journey. I'm Leo, your resident recovering perfectionist, and I'm joined by the person who always has the right words when I lose mine.
Oh, stop it. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. It's absolutely wonderful to be back in your ears today. Whether you're stuck in traffic, walking your dog, or maybe you've just sat down with a cup of tea to finally focus on your English, we are so glad you've invited us along.
Today, we're tackling a monster, a psychological monster that lives in the brain of almost every language learner. It's called the spotlight effect. Have you ever felt like as soon as you open your mouth to speak English, the whole world stops, a giant spotlight hits you, and everyone is just waiting for you to fail?
It's a heavy topic, but so necessary. This effect is the reason why brilliant, professional people suddenly feel like children when they have to speak a second language. It paralyzes us. But the good news is, once you understand the mechanics of it, you can turn that spotlight off.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is this spotlight effect? Because I feel it constantly. If I go to a party and I have to tell a story in English, I feel like every single person is analyzing my grammar, my accent, my vocabulary choice. Is that just me being insecure?
It is not just you. In fact, it's a documented psychological bias. The term was coined back in 2000 by researchers at Cornell University, Gilovich, Medvec, and Savitsky. They ran a fascinating experiment that perfectly illustrates what's happening in our heads.
This is the famous T-shirt study, right?
That's the one. They took a group of university students and asked them to wear a T-shirt that was considered embarrassing at the time. It had a big picture of the singer Barry Manilow on it. Now, no offense to Barry Manilow fans, but for cool college students in 2000, this was not a cool look.
I can imagine. It's like wearing a shirt that says, "I love polka music" to a rock concert.
Precisely. So these students had to walk into a room full of other students while wearing this shirt. Afterward, the researchers asked them to estimate how many people in the room had noticed the embarrassing shirt. The students were convinced that about 50% of the room had spotted it. They felt glaringly obvious.
Because when you're wearing the shirt, it's all you can think about. You feel like a neon sign.
Exactly, but here's the kicker. In reality, only about 25% of the people in the room actually noticed. The students overestimated their visibility by double. This is the spotlight effect in a nutshell. We assume people are paying attention to us twice as much as they actually are.
That is wild when you think about the numbers. Half the people you think are judging you aren't even looking at you. They probably didn't even see the coffee stain on my shirt this morning.
They almost certainly didn't. And if they did, they forgot about it 3 seconds later. The psychological mechanism behind this is called anchoring and adjustment. We are anchored to our own experience. You are inside your own body, feeling your own anxiety, hearing your own internal monologue. That experience is incredibly intense for you. So you try to adjust for the fact that others don't have access to your thoughts, but you can't adjust enough. You are too anchored in your own reality.
This connects so perfectly to language learning. I remember a meeting last week where I used the word preach when I meant reach. I said, we need to preach our quarterly goals.
Oh, that's a good one.
I spent the next 10 minutes paralyzed. I was thinking, they think I'm starting a religious cult. They think I'm crazy. I couldn't focus on the rest of the meeting because the spotlight felt so hot.
And did anyone react?
No, someone just nodded and said, yes, the numbers look good. My colleague didn't even register the mistake. I was suffering for nothing.
That is a classic example. You were anchored to the error. To you, the word preach was screaming in your head, but to your colleagues, they were anchored to their own thoughts, the quarterly goals, their lunch plans, or maybe their own fear of speaking. This brings us to a related concept called the illusion of transparency.
Transparency, like being invisible?
Like being made of glass. When we are nervous, let's say your hands are shaking slightly or your heart is pounding because you have to speak English, we feel like that nervousness is radiating off of us. We think everyone can see our internal panic. We feel transparent.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like there's a ticker tape on my forehead scrolling the words, "This man is terrified."
But studies show that observers rarely pick up on this. We overestimate how readable we are. You might feel like you're having a heart attack, but on the outside, you just look like a guy thinking about his answer. The internal storm is not visible on the external weather map.
That is actually really comforting. It means I can fake it till I make it a lot more effectively than I thought.
You really can, but I want to touch on why this happens. Why are we wired to be so self-obsessed? It's not because we are narcissists.
Right, it feels more like survival than vanity.
It is survival. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this hypersensitivity to social judgment comes from our ancestral history. Thousands of years ago, if you were in a small tribe and you did something socially unacceptable, you risked being kicked out of the tribe.
And exclusion meant death. You couldn't survive on your own in the wild.
Exactly. So our brains developed a social alarm system that is hyper-vigilant about how others perceive us. The problem is that alarm system is outdated. If you make a grammar mistake in a Zoom meeting today, you are not going to die. You aren't going to be exiled to the wilderness. But your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, doesn't know that. It reacts with the same intensity as if your life were threatened.
That explains the physical symptoms, the sweaty palms, the dry mouth. It's a fight or flight response to a verb conjugation.
It sounds funny when you put it that way, but that is literally what is happening biologically.
I think this hits our intermediate learners the hardest, the infamous B2 plateau. When you're a beginner, you have this baby license. You're allowed to make mistakes. People think it's cute.
Yes, the charm of the novice.
But when you get to B2, you're often a professional. You have a job, a degree, a status, and suddenly in English, you feel stripped of that status. You feel like a child again.
This is where the ego becomes the enemy. At the intermediate level, you know enough to know that you are making mistakes, but you don't have enough automaticity, that muscle memory, to fix them in real time. So you are constantly auditing yourself. You are monitoring your own speech while you are speaking. It is exhausting.
It's like trying to drive a car while simultaneously taking apart the engine to check if it's working. You're going to crash.
And the fear is that if you make a mistake, people will judge your intelligence. They won't just think he's bad at English, they'll think he's not smart. That is the core here driving the spotlight effect in professionals.
So let's play devil's advocate for a second. We're saying nobody notices, but sometimes people do notice. There are judgmental people out there. If I'm in a high-stakes negotiation and I mess up, isn't it true that they might judge me?
Of course, we have to be honest. Judgment exists, but we have to distinguish between noticing a mistake and condemning a person. Most people notice the mistake, filter it out, and move on because they want the information. They are pragmatic. The number of people who are actively, maliciously judging your character based on your grammar is statistically tiny.
Because they are too busy starring in their own movie.
Exactly. This is the lead actor theory. Everyone believes they are the lead actor of the movie called Life. You are just an extra in their scene. The waiter isn't thinking about your pronunciation of vegetables. He is thinking about his tips, his tired feet, or the argument he had with his girlfriend. You are not the event of his day.
That is genuinely liberating. Being an extra sounds like a demotion, but for a language learner, it's freedom. It means I can mess up my lines and the movie keeps going.
So, how do we use this? We can't just tell our brains, stop worrying. We need practical tools to dim that spotlight.
One thing that helps me is the 24-hour rule. I remind myself that no matter how bad I think I messed up, nobody will be thinking about it in 24 hours. Usually, they won't remember it in 24 minutes. If I could just survive the initial cringe, I'm free.
I love that. It provides perspective. My favorite technique is external focus. The spotlight effect is a disease of internal focus. You are looking inward at your own anxiety. To cure it, you must forcefully turn your attention outward.
How do you do that in the moment?
You focus intensely on the other person. Look at their eyes. Listen to the specific words they are using. Watch their body language. Be curious about them. The human brain has a limited bandwidth for attention. If you are 100% focused on understanding the other person, you have 0% bandwidth left to monitor yourself. You physically cannot worry about your grammar if you are truly listening.
That's like meditation and conversation. You're shifting the anchor from yourself to the other person.
Precisely. And another tool, one that requires a bit of bravery, is what I call the vulnerability power move.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. What is it?
If you feel yourself freezing up or you can't find a word, just admit it. Say, I'm sorry, my English brain is buffering today. Or, I know the word in Spanish, but it's hiding from me in English.
I do that. I usually say, sorry, my brain is in low battery mode. It's amazing how much it changes the room.
It breaks the tension immediately because suddenly you aren't trying to be perfect and failing, you're being human and succeeding. It actually makes you more likable. People love to help. If you ask for help with a word, the other person feels smart for knowing it. You've turned a failure into a connection.
It bridges the gap. It stops being a performance and starts being a conversation, and that's really the goal, isn't it? We aren't here to win an award for perfect grammar. We're here to connect with human beings.
That is the ultimate truth. Your English is a tool, not a trophy. A hammer doesn't have to be shiny to drive a nail. It just has to be solid. Your language skills are the same. If you get your point across, you have succeeded. The spotlight effect tries to tell you that the shine matters more than the nail, but it's a lie.
I think we all need to print that on a t-shirt. Maybe a Barry Manilow t-shirt.
A perfect full circle moment. Yes, wear the shirt, embrace the awkwardness, because at the end of the day, we are our own harshest critics. You would never judge a friend as brutally as you judge yourself.
That's so true. If a friend made a mistake, I'd probably just think, good for them for trying. We need to extend that same grace to ourselves.
Absolutely. You are doing something incredibly difficult. Navigating the world in a second language. That is a superpower, even if it has a few glitches in the system.
Well, I think we've shined enough light on the spotlight effect for today. Don't let your mind play tricks on you. You're doing better than you think.
Totally. Remember, nobody is counting your mistakes. They are too busy worrying about their own. So go out there, order that burger, speak up in that meeting, and be kind to yourself.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, share it with a friend who might be feeling the pressure. We'll be back next week with more tools for your English journey.
Until then, keep practicing.
Stay frosty and keep talking. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.